I stood in the Allegheny County Courthouse, and right when their lawyer said she owes her parents, the judge stopped writing. A manila folder hit the floor, the microphone catching my mother's exact words from her phone. "You ungrateful, pay us now." And when I placed that envelope on the witness stand, the entire courtroom fell silent. Then everything shifted. My parents thought they could sue me for raising me. They had no idea I legally owned their mortgage. My name is Lila Hart, and I should have known that Sunday dinner at my sister's house would end in litigation. The kitchen smelled like tomato sauce and garlic bread, the kind of homey aroma that's supposed to make you feel safe. Vanessa's new place in Sewickley had all the markers of success: marble countertops, professional range, the works. She'd made partner at Bishop and Ames LLP last year, and every surface gleamed like her career trajectory. "Pass the wine," Mom said, her voice carrying that particular edge that meant she was building up to something. Marjorie Hart never just asked for wine. She asked for wine before announcements. I reached for the bottle of Cabernet, a $30 vintage I'd brought, which Vanessa had already commented was surprisingly decent for a grocery store find. Everything with my family came with these little barbs, wrapped in smiles. "So," Vanessa began, twirling her pasta with practiced elegance. "Grandpa's estate finally cleared probate." She paused for effect, dabbing her lips with the linen napkin. "He left me the lake house in Butler County." The room went quiet except for the soft clink of silverware. Dad Paul Hart, retired middle management. Permanent disappointment in his eyes whenever he looked at me, cleared his throat. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. Must be worth 6 figures easy." Vanessa cut in, her smile sharp as the knife beside her plate. She turned to me. "You're still in that tiny rental in Lawrenceville, right? The one with the rattling pipes." My phone buzzed against my thigh. I glanced down discreetly an email from my operations manager at Northline Recovery Partners. The subject line made my pulse quicken. "Henderson portfolio acquisition complete, 3.2 mailers." Buried in that portfolio, though my family didn't know it yet, was a second mortgage bearing 2 familiar names, Paul and Marjorie Hart. "Lila's doing fine," Mom said, though her tone suggested otherwise. "Though it would be nice if she contributed more to the family. Vanessa's been so generous, helping us with the property taxes last year." "That was nothing," Vanessa waved her hand dismissively. "Family helps family. Speaking of which, I'm starting renovations next month. The contractor quotes are insane, $50,000 just for the kitchen and main bathroom." She looked directly at me. "I don't suppose you could help out, I mean. You're always talking about that debt company of yours. Business must be good if you can afford to keep it running." The temperature in the room shifted. This was it, the ask. They always built up to the ask. "I can't," I said simply, cutting into my chicken. "That's not in my budget." Mom's fork clattered against her plate. "Ungrateful." The word hung in the air like a challenge. "Excuse me." "You heard me." Mom's voice rose. "After everything we've done for you, everything we've spent, do you have any idea what it cost to raise you, to feed you, clothe you, keep a roof over your head?" Dad jumped in, his face reddening. "Your mother's right. We sacrificed everything. And what do we get? A daughter who hoards her money while her family struggles." Struggles. I couldn't help the laugh that escaped. "In a 4-bedroom house with 2 cars, while Vanessa just inherited a lake house." "Don't you dare!" Mom stood up, her chair scraping against the hardwood. "You owe us. You want an exact figure. Fine. Between raising you for 18 years, the college expenses, the car we bought you, the car you gave Vanessa when I went to college," I interjected, "the medical bills, the food, the clothes, everything else you owe us at least $120,000, and we want it. Cash." The room went silent. Even Vanessa looked surprised, though I caught the slight upturn of her lips. She'd probably helped them calculate that number. I pulled out my phone and hit record, placing it face up on the table. "Say that again." "You think you're so smart?" Mom hissed, not noticing the recording app's red indicator. with your fancy business talk and your spreadsheets, but you're nothing without us. You owe us everything, and you're going to pay, one way or another. We'll sue if we have to," Dad added. "Pennsylvania has laws about this. Children supporting their parents. Vanessa already looked into it." Of course she had. I stood slowly, picking up my phone. The recording saved automatically to my cloud. "Thank you for dinner, Vanessa. The pasta was excellent." As I headed for the door, Mom's voice followed me. "You'll pay, Lila, every penny, or I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of daughter you are." The door closed on her threats, but her words were already saved in digital amber. My phone buzzed again, another Northline update, this time about the servicing rights for the Henderson portfolio. I sat in my car for a moment, looking at my parents' names on the mortgage document. They wanted to play hardball. They had no idea who they were playing with. Growing up in Erie, Pennsylvania, I learned early that love in the Hart household was a zero-sum game, and I was always on the losing end. Our house on West 8th Street looked perfect from the outside white colonial black shutters, the American dream in architectural form. Inside, it was a shrine to Vanessa. Her trophies lined the mantel: mock trial champion, valedictorian, full ride to Pitt Law, my single science fair ribbon second place. Junior year lived in a drawer somewhere. I remember the night of Vanessa's high school prom like it was yesterday. Mom spent $300 on her dress, another $100 on hair and makeup. They hired a professional photographer. When my prom came 2 years later, I got a dress from the clearance rack at JCPenney and Mom's half-hearted offer to do something with your hair. "Vanessa's going to be a lawyer," Dad would tell anyone who'd listen at his office barbecues. "Following in the footsteps of the greats?" When people asked about me, he'd shrug. "Lila's good with numbers." Good with numbers. That was it. That was my entire identity in their eyes. The college years made it worse. Vanessa went to University of Pittsburgh on that full scholarship, but somehow my parents still sent her monthly care packages, $500 here, $1,000 there. "Law school is stressful," Mom would say. "She needs to focus on her studies, not worry about money." Meanwhile, I worked 3 jobs to get through Penn State Erie. Data entry at night, tutoring on weekends, campus food service in between classes. When I graduated with a degree in data science and a minor in business analytics, my parents came to the ceremony. They left after an hour because Vanessa had a law review article coming out, and they wanted to be home to celebrate with her over video chat. The moment that planted the seed of my eventual revenge came when I was 25. I'd just started at Red Leaf Capital as a junior analyst, finally making decent money but drowning in student loans. A dental emergency hit infected root canal. No insurance coverage for the specialized procedure. $3,000 minimum, the endodontist said. Plus, I was behind on rent after my car broke down the month before. I called home at 9:45 p.m., swallowing my pride. "Mom, I hate to ask, but I'm in a bind. Could you and Dad loan me $5,000? I'll pay you back with interest. I promise. I can set up a payment plan." "Oh, honey," she'd said, and I could hear the TV in the background, probably another law drama she watched to understand Vanessa's world better. "You know we would, but we just put money into Vanessa's bar exam prep course. The good one, with the private tutors. It's an investment in her future." "What about my future?" "Lila, be realistic. Vanessa's going to be a partner someday. That's real money. Your computer thing is nice, but it's not the same. Maybe you should get a roommate or a second job." A second job. On top of the 50-hour weeks I was already pulling. 2 weeks later, Vanessa posted Instagram photos from her bar exam stress relief trip to Cabo. The comments from our parents: "So proud of you. You deserve this. Our future lawyer needs her rest." I paid for my root canal with a credit card that took me 2 years to pay off. The interest alone was more than what I'd asked to borrow. That's when I started keeping a spreadsheet. Not for them to see for me. Every birthday gift, every Christmas present, every little help they gave Vanessa versus what I received. The numbers were staggering. By my calculation, between ages 18 and 30, They'd given Vanessa approximately $200,000 in direct support, not counting the college expenses they loved to remind me about. My total $15,000, and most of that was before I turned 18. But here's what they never understood about being good with numbers. It's not just about arithmetic. It's about patterns, systems, understanding how money really moves through the world. While Vanessa was learning to argue cases, I was learning how debt gets packaged, sold, and resold, how a $100,000 medical debt could be purchased for pennies on the dollar, how the entire financial ecosystem worked beneath the surface of what most people saw. They thought I was just a data analyst pushing spreadsheets. They had no idea I was studying the very architecture of financial power. Every dismissive comment, every Vanessa's the successful one remark, every time they forgot my birthday but threw Vanessa a party, it all went into my mental ledger. The last family dinner before the blow-up, the one where they demanded money. Mom had actually said, "We gave you both life," but Vanessa made something of hers. I'd smiled and nodded, thinking about the Northline Incorporation papers in my car, about the credit facilities I'd arranged, about the portfolio acquisitions I was already processing. They saw Vanessa's name on a law firm letterhead and thought that was success. They couldn't see that I was building something that would make her partnership earnings look like pocket change. But most importantly, they couldn't see that their own financial carelessness, the second mortgage they'd taken out to pay for Vanessa's emergencies over the years, had ended up in a distressed debt portfolio. My portfolio. They wanted me to pay for being raised. Fine. But they were about to learn that everything has a price, especially contempt. The transformation from cubicle dweller to CEO didn't happen overnight. It took 3 years of 18-hour days, countless rejections, and more ramen dinners than I care to remember. My desk at Red Leaf Capital sat in the corner of the 32nd floor, perfect view of downtown Pittsburgh's skyline. I'd arrive at 6:30 a.m., 2 hours before most of my colleagues, diving into spreadsheets that tracked distressed debt portfolios across Pennsylvania. Medical debt, credit cards, auto loans. I analyzed them all, learning the brutal mathematics of financial distress. "Hart, you seeing these numbers?" My supervisor, Marcus, had dropped a file on my desk one Tuesday morning. "Hospital system in Harrisburg just packaged $8 million in medical debt. They're selling at 3 cents on the dollar." 3 cents. That meant a $100,000 cancer patient's debt could be bought for $3,000. The hospital got something rather than nothing. The debt buyer got a potential profit, and the patient still crushed under a burden they'd never escape. That's when the idea hit me. What if someone bought that debt not to squeeze blood from stones, but to restructure it fairly, remove the predatory interest, eliminate the penalties, work with people instead of against them? I spent nights studying Pennsylvania's Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, the Federal Trade Commission guidelines, the Dodd-Frank amendments. I took online courses in debt purchasing, attended weekend seminars on portfolio management, while Vanessa was posting photos from wine tastings with her lawyer friends. I was in my apartment surrounded by legal textbooks and financial modeling software. The breakthrough came when I discovered a loophole not illegal, just overlooked. Pennsylvania law allowed for beneficial debt restructuring if the debt owner chose to forgive portions without tax implications for the debtor. Under certain circumstances, most debt buyers didn't care. They wanted maximum extraction. But what if that wasn't the goal? I incorporated Northline Recovery Partners LLC on a Thursday afternoon at 3:15 p.m., using my entire savings of $42,000 as initial capital. The name came from the street where I'd grown up, Northline Avenue, the poor side of Erie where my parents had lived before Vanessa's success let them move up. My first purchase was small, a portfolio of dental debt from a chain that had gone bankrupt. $50,000 in debt for $1,500. I contacted each debtor personally, offering to settle for 20% of the original. No interest. Payment plans accepted. Every single person paid. My initial investment returned fourfold. Within 6 months, I'd quit Red Leaf and was running Northline full-time. I brought on Daria Keene, Esquire, a brilliant attorney who'd been blackballed from big law for being too ethical. Together, We built something revolutionary, a debt recovery firm that actually helped people. This is insane, Daria had said, reviewing our first year's numbers. We're making money by being decent human beings. Turns out desperation makes people reliable, I replied. Give them hope, a fair deal, and they'll move mountains to pay you back. By year 2, we were purchasing million-dollar portfolios. I hired investigators to verify debt legitimacy, accountants to ensure our practices were bulletproof, and even a social worker to connect debtors with resources. We were the anti-collection agency. Then came the Henderson portfolio. Lila, you need to see this. My operations manager, Keith, had flagged me on a Friday morning. Mixed portfolio, $3.2 million face value, selling for $200,000. But look at line item 47. Second mortgage, originated 2018. Borrowers Paul and Marjorie Hart. Original amount $90,000. Current balance with interest and penalties $137,000. My parents had taken out a second mortgage to pay for Vanessa's wedding, the one where I'd been told I could be a bridesmaid if I lost a few pounds first. I'd declined and sent a check for $500 instead. They'd cashed it without a thank you. Do we pass on this? Keith asked. No, I said, staring at their names. We buy it. All of it. The acquisition went through the next week. I had Daria review everything 3 times, ensuring completely legal ownership. Then I did something unusual. I put a hold on the Hart mortgage. No collection attempts, no letters, nothing. Just quiet monitoring. Why, Daria asked. Call it intuition, I said. Sometimes the best investment is patience. I hired Miles Ortega, CPA and certified fraud examiner, to do a deep dive on my family's finances. Not illegally all public records, social media, property filings. The picture that emerged was fascinating. My parents were drowning, but too proud to admit it. Dad's pension was smaller than expected. Mom's shopping habits hadn't adjusted to retirement, and they were paying minimums on everything. Meanwhile, Vanessa was leveraging her parents' financial struggles in bar association presentations about elder law and family obligations. Supporting our aging parents, a legal and moral imperative, read one of her presentation titles. The irony was magnificent. I sat on that mortgage for 3 months, building Northline bigger, stronger, more legally unassailable. We developed a reputation, the ethical debt buyers. News stations did feel-good pieces on us. The state attorney general's office sent us a commendation. All the while, I knew I held the keys to my parents' home in my portfolio. They were one missed payment from acceleration, from foreclosure, from losing everything. But I didn't pull that trigger. I waited, because I knew my family. I knew their pride would become their downfall. I knew they'd eventually come for money, not asking but demanding, not requesting but requiring. The Sunday dinner at Vanessa's proved me right. When Mom screamed that I owed them cash, when Dad threatened to sue, when Vanessa smirked about Pennsylvania's filial responsibility laws, they had no idea they were threatening someone who literally owned their house. The recording of Mom's threats sat in my cloud storage, backed up 3 times. The mortgage documents were in my office safe. Everything was in place. They wanted to play legal games. They were about to learn that the house always wins, and I was the house now. The first letter arrived on a Wednesday, delivered by certified mail to my office. The return address was a law firm I didn't recognize, Brennan and Associates. Not Vanessa's firm. Smart. Even she knew representing our parents directly would be an ethical violation. Ms. Hart. The letter began. We represent Paul and Marjorie Hart in the matter of filial support and reimbursement for expenses incurred during your upbringing. Our clients seek compensation in the amount of $120,000 for costs associated with your care, education, and general welfare from birth through age 18, plus additional support provided thereafter. I actually laughed. They'd put it in writing. The audacity was breathtaking. The letter continued with vague legal threats about Pennsylvania's filial responsibility statutes, citing cases where adult children had been forced to pay for parental care. What they didn't mention, probably because they hadn't researched properly, was that those cases involved indigent parents requiring medical care, not comfortable retirees trying to shake down their children. My phone rang at 11:30 p.m. that night. "Mom, did you get it?" Her voice was sharp, predatory. "The letter? Yes. Good. Vanessa says you have 30 days to respond before we file suit. This doesn't have to get ugly. Lila, just pay what you owe." I hit record on my phone app. "What exactly do I owe?" "Mother, don't play dumb. We raised you, fed you, clothed you, kept you safe. That costs money. Money we could have invested, saved, used for ourselves. You're successful now, time to pay it back. And if I don't, then everyone will know what kind of daughter you are. I'll post it on Facebook, tell the entire family. You'll be the ungrateful child who abandoned her parents. Plus, we'll win in court. Vanessa says the law is clear. Vanessa's advising you on this." A pause. "Informally. As a daughter. Not a lawyer." Sure. I'd bet my entire portfolio she'd drafted that letter herself and had Brennan sign it. "One more thing," Mom continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I know about your company. I know you're hiding money. Pay us, or I'll tell the IRS you're committing tax fraud." There it was. Extortion. Beautiful. That's a serious accusation. Mom. It's not an accusation if it's true. You think you're so smart with your debt buying and your LLCs. But I raised you. I know when you're hiding something. Good night, Mom. 30 days. Lila. Or we destroy you. The line went dead. I saved the recording to 3 different cloud services and emailed it to Daria with the subject line, "Evidence." The next 2 weeks brought an escalation. Dad called my office directly, leaving voicemails about family duty and moral obligations. Vanessa sent texts that danced around direct threats but implied she had connections who could make business difficult for Northline. Then came the family gathering a cousin's birthday party I couldn't skip without raising questions. The moment I walked in, the whispers started. Mom had been busy. "I heard you're refusing to help your parents," Aunt Catherine said, cornering me by the punch bowl. "After everything they did for you." "Did Mom mention she's demanding 6 figures?" I asked. Catherine's eyes widened. "She said you were being stingy about a small loan." The pattern continued. Every relative had been told a version where I was wealthy but selfish, hoarding money while my parents struggled. None of them knew about the lawsuit threat, the extortion, or the fact that my parents owned a house worth $400,000. The formal summons arrived on day 28. They'd actually filed a civil suit in the Court of Common Pleas of Allegheny County. The complaint was a masterpiece of creative writing, painting me as a negligent daughter who'd abandoned her loving parents despite having the means to support them. I met with Daria that afternoon in her office, a converted loft in the Strip district that smelled like coffee and old books. "This is garbage," she said, flipping through the complaint. "They're citing statutes that don't apply, making claims without evidence, and—" She paused, looking closer. "This language is too sophisticated for Brennan. Someone else wrote this. Vanessa. Obviously. But here's the interesting part: they filed in Allegheny County, not Erie where they live. Why," I smiled, "because they think judges here don't know them. Fresh start, no history. Except you live here, work here, pay taxes here." Daria leaned back. "They played themselves. We file our response here, in your home court. Speaking of which, when do we drop the bomb about the mortgage?" "Not yet," I said. "Let them think they're winning first." We crafted our response carefully, denied all claims, demanded proof of damages, and requested extensive discovery. But the real knife was the counterclaim harassment, attempted extortion, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. We attached the recordings as exhibits. 48 hours later, my phone exploded with calls. Mom, Dad, Vanessa, all blocked. The emails started flooding in. "How dare you record me without permission? You're destroying this family. Drop the counterclaim or we'll make your life hell. I forwarded everything to Daria, adding to our evidence pile. Then, Vanessa made a mistake. She logged into her work email and sent me a message from her official Bishop and Ames account. Drop this now, or I'll personally ensure Northline gets investigated by state regulators. I have friends at the Attorney General's office. I forwarded it to Daria with 2 words. Professional misconduct. Oh, absolutely, she replied. She just threatened you using her position as an attorney. The disciplinary board will love this. The hearing was set for 3 weeks out. Judge Celeste Morel presiding. I researched her 15 years on the bench. No tolerance for frivolous litigation. Particular hatred for family members using courts to settle personal scores. Perfect. As I prepared my evidence binders, organizing every email, text, and recording, I kept the mortgage documents in a separate file. The nuclear option, waiting for the perfect moment. They wanted their money. They were about to learn what everything really cost. Building a counter case is like constructing a house of cards in reverse. You start with the collapse and work backward to show how every piece was deliberately placed to fall. Miles Ortega, my forensic accountant, spread 10 years of financial documents across the conference table in Northline's office. His glasses reflected the fluorescent lights as he pointed to highlighted transactions. "This is beautiful in its ugliness," he said, tapping a bank statement from 2017. "Your college fund, established by your grandmother when you were born, $23,000 by the time you turned 18. Look what happened." The withdrawal slip showed my father's signature. The same day, a deposit into Vanessa's account for her law school emergency expenses, my education money funding her bar exam prep. "That's just the beginning," Miles continued. "I've tracked 17 separate instances where money designated for you was redirected. Birthday checks from relatives, a small inheritance from your great-aunt, even the savings bonds you got for high school graduation. How much total? $47,000 minimum. That's just what I can prove with documentation." Daria walked in carrying a box of printed emails. "Discovery from Brennan's office just arrived. Your parents' attorney is not happy, but he complied. And Lila, you need to see this." She handed me an email thread between my mother and Vanessa from 3 months ago, before the dinner confrontation. The subject line, Operation Reality Check. Vanessa had written, "Mom, if we coordinate this right, Lila will have to pay. The filial responsibility angle plus public pressure should work. I can draft everything. Just need you and Dad to sign. My firm can't know I'm involved." My mother's response, "She owes us anyway. All that money we wasted on her education when she just ended up in business. At least you made something of yourself." "This is conspiracy," Daria said. "They planned this entire thing." I set the email aside and pulled out my laptop. "Let me show you something else." I logged into Northline's portfolio management system and pulled up the Henderson acquisition. There it was, the Hart mortgage, flagged in red with a note, "No collection activity per CEO directive." "Current balance?" Daria asked. $137,000 and change. They're 4 months behind on payments. I clicked through to the payment history. They've been using credit cards to make minimum payments, but those are maxed out now. "When do we reveal this?" Miles asked. "At the hearing. But first, we need the full picture." I turned to Keith, who'd just arrived. "What did the investigator find?" Keith opened his tablet. "Your sister's been living beyond her means. The house in Sewickley. She's underwater on the mortgage. The lake house inheritance, she's already taken a loan against it. Her partnership draw at Bishop and Ames is $300,000 a year, but she's spending $450. And my parents. Your father's pension pays $36,000 annually. Your mother gets Social Security. Another $18,000. Their mortgage payment is $2,800 monthly. Do the math, they're bleeding money." I stood and walked to the whiteboard, drawing a timeline. So here's what really happened. They gave Vanessa everything, assuming she'd be their retirement plan. But Vanessa's drowning in her own debt. They can't ask her for money without admitting she's not the success they proclaimed. So they come after me, the disappointing daughter who must be hiding wealth. "It's worse," Daria added. I pulled court records. Vanessa's been named in 2 malpractice suits this year. Her firm's insurance covered it, but she's on thin ice. If the disciplinary board gets wind of her threats to you using firm resources, she's finished, I completed. We spent the next week assembling everything into a coherent narrative. Miles created a spreadsheet showing every penny my parents had given to each daughter over 20 years. The disparity was stunning: $212,000 to Vanessa, $14,000 to me. Then came the depositions. My parents' lawyer, Brennan, was a tired-looking man who clearly regretted taking this case. He asked standard questions about my income, my company, my relationship with my parents. "Ms. Hart," he said, reading from notes obviously prepared by someone else. "Do you deny that your parents provided for you during your childhood? They provided the legal minimum required to avoid Child Protective Services involvement," I replied. His eyes widened. "That's a harsh characterization." "It's an accurate one. Would you like to see the spreadsheet comparing expenditures between myself and my sister?" "That's not relevant to—" "It's entirely relevant," Daria interrupted. "If they're claiming reimbursement for raising my client, we're entitled to show disparate treatment and bad faith." Brennan shuffled his papers. "Your parents claim you have hidden assets. Based on what evidence? They believe your lifestyle exceeds your reported income." I laughed. "My lifestyle: I drive a 6-year-old Honda, live in a 1-bedroom apartment, and shop at Target. Meanwhile, they're taking vacations to Florida and buying new furniture. Who exactly is living beyond their means?" The deposition ended with Brennan looking defeated. He knew this was a losing case, but my parents were pushing forward. 3 days before the hearing, I had one final document to prepare. I drafted a letter on Northline letterhead: "Dear Mr. and Mrs. Hart, Northline Recovery Partners currently holds your second mortgage, account number ending in 4782. Despite your delinquency, we have not pursued collection efforts. We are prepared to offer a full discharge of this debt, eliminating your obligation of $137,000 contingent upon the following: immediate withdrawal of all legal claims against Lila Hart. Written apology acknowledging false accusations. Agreement to cease all contact unless initiated by Lila Hart. This offer expires upon commencement of the scheduled hearing." I signed it, had it notarized, but didn't send it. "Not yet." "You're giving them an out?" Miles asked when he saw it. "I'm giving them rope," I corrected. "They'll hang themselves with it." The night before the hearing, Vanessa called from a blocked number. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. "Last chance, little sister," she said without preamble. "Drop your counterclaim, pay them $50,000, and this all goes away." "Or what?" "Or I'll make sure everyone in Pittsburgh's business community knows you're a predator who preys on desperate people's debts." "Vanessa, are you recording this?" "Of course not." "Good, because I am, and you just committed defamation per se. Anything else you'd like to add to my evidence file?" She hung up. I looked at the letter offering to forgive my parents' mortgage, then at the stack of evidence proving their extortion, fraud, and harassment. Tomorrow, Judge Morrell would see it all, and my parents would finally understand that the daughter they'd dismissed as just good with numbers had become something far more dangerous, someone with both the power and the will to use it. The Allegheny County Courthouse stood like a gray monument to justice, its limestone steps worn smooth by decades of people seeking vindication. I climbed them at 8:45 a.m., Daria beside me pulling a litigation case filled with evidence. Courtroom 703 smelled like old wood and floor wax. Judge Celeste Morrell presided from a bench that seemed to tower over everything, her silver hair pulled back severely, reading glasses perched on her nose as she reviewed preliminary documents. My parents sat at the plaintiff's table with Brennan, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Mom wore her church dress, the navy one with white pearls costume jewelry she tried to pass off as real. Dad fidgeted with his tie. They were performing respectability. Vanessa sat in the gallery, technically just an observer, but clearly the puppet master. She kept glancing at her phone, probably billing another client for this time. "Hart versus Hart," Judge Morrell announced. "Quite the family affair. Mr. Brennan, you may present your case. Brennan stood, cleared his throat. Your Honor, my clients seek compensation for the costs of raising their daughter, who, despite having substantial means, refuses to support them in their retirement years. Interesting, Judge Morrell said, her tone suggesting it was anything but. Proceed. Brennan called my father first. Paul Hart took the stand like he was accepting an award, shoulders back, chin up. Mr. Hart, Brennan began, can you describe the financial sacrifices you made raising the defendant? Everything, Dad said, his voice catching dramatically. We gave her everything. Private tutors when she struggled in math. I never had a private tutor, I whispered to Daria. Dance lessons, piano lessons, summer camps. We spent thousands ensuring she had every opportunity. I see. And what does the defendant do now in return? Nothing. She hoards her wealth while we struggle. It's unconscionable. Judge Morrell made a note. Mr. Hart, do you have receipts for these tutors and lessons? Dad faltered. Well, it was years ago. No receipts. Continue. Mr. Brennan. Mom took the stand next, dabbing her eyes with a tissue she'd pre-moistened in the hallway I'd seen her do it. Mrs. Hart, how has your daughter's refusal to help affected you? It's broken my heart, Mom said. After everything we did, the sleepless nights, the sacrifices, and now she's successful, running some company, hiding money, and we can barely make ends meet. Objection. Daria stood. Speculation about hiding money without evidence. Sustained. Jury will disregard. Oh, wait, there's no jury. I'll disregard it myself. Continue. Brennan wrapped up quickly, sensing the judge's mood. Your Honor, we request compensation of $120,000 for the costs of raising the defendant, as permitted under Pennsylvania's filial responsibility statutes. Ms. Keene. Judge Morrell turned to Daria. Your response. Daria stood, smoothing her suit jacket. Shh, Your Honor. We have several exhibits to present that will illuminate the true nature of this case. Proceed. First, Exhibit A, a forensic accounting of all financial support provided to both Hart daughters over 20 years. Miles took the stand. Credentials stated for the record. He walked through the spreadsheet methodically. $212,000 to Vanessa. $14,000 to me. Exhibit B, Daria continued. Email communications between Mrs. Hart and Vanessa Hart Bishop, planning this lawsuit 3 months before filing, referring to it as Operation Reality Check. Brennan's face went pale. My parents looked at Vanessa, who was suddenly very interested in her phone screen. Exhibit C recorded phone conversations where Mrs. Hart threatens to falsely report my client for tax fraud if she doesn't pay, which constitutes extortion under Pennsylvania Criminal Code. Mom's tissue dabbing became real tears. And finally, Your Honor, we'd like to present evidence regarding the plaintiff's claim of financial hardship. I took the stand, my heart steady despite the moment I'd waited for. Ms. Hart, Daria began, what is your profession? I'm CEO of Northline Recovery Partners, a debt acquisition and resolution company. And does your company currently hold any debt belonging to the plaintiffs? Brennan shot up. Objection relevance. Goes to the plaintiff's claim of poverty and the defendant's alleged obligation to support them. Daria responded. I'll allow it, Judge Morrell said, leaning forward. I opened the manila envelope I'd carried in. Northline Recovery Partners legally acquired a portfolio of distressed debt 6 months ago. Included was a second mortgage on the property at 427 Westfield Drive, Erie, Pennsylvania. The mortgagors are Paul and Marjorie Hart. The courtroom went silent. Current balance, Daria asked. $137,412. They're 4 months delinquent. Dad's face went from red to white. Mom's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Your Honor, I continued, pulling out the letter I'd drafted. I prepared this discharge offer 3 days ago. Full forgiveness of the debt, contingent upon them dropping this suit and agreeing to cease harassment. They could have been free of this obligation. Instead, they chose to pursue extortion. Judge Morrell took the letter, read it slowly. You were prepared to forgive nearly $140,000. Yes, Your Honor. I don't want their money. I never did. I wanted respect, or at minimum, to be left alone. Ms. Hart Bishop, the judge suddenly addressed Vanessa in the gallery. I see you there. Would you like to explain your involvement in this case? Vanessa stood slowly. I'm just here as family support, Your Honor. Really, because I have emails here suggesting you drafted the legal strategy while deliberately concealing your involvement from your firm. Should I forward these to the disciplinary board? That won't be necessary, Vanessa said quickly. I'll decide what's necessary. Sit down. Judge Morell removed her glasses, rubbed her temples. In 30 years on the bench, I've seen families destroy themselves over money. But this suing your child for the cost of raising them while you're defaulting on loans, planning extortion, and lying to the court, this is exceptional in its awfulness. She looked directly at my parents. Your petition is denied. Completely. Furthermore, I'm granting the defendant's counterclaim for harassment. You will pay Ms. Hart's legal fees, and if I see any of you in my courtroom again with anything resembling this nonsense, I'll refer you for criminal prosecution for extortion and fraud. Your Honor. I stood. About the mortgage. Ms. Hart. Northline Recovery Partners will forgive the debt in full, effective immediately. No conditions. Gasps from the plaintiff's table. Despite everything, I don't want my parents homeless. The discharge documents will be filed with the county recorder this afternoon. Judge Morell nodded slowly. That's remarkably generous. Considering, but, I added, pulling out one more document. I'm also establishing the Paul and Marjorie Hart Fund for Elder Debt Relief through Northline's charitable arm, a $25,000 endowment to help seniors struggling with predatory loans, because their names should stand for something better than this. I placed the check on the witness stand, not made out to them, but to the fund in their names. Mom broke down completely. Dad stared at the check like it might bite him. Vanessa was already halfway to the door. Court is adjourned, Judge Morell announced. Mr. and Mrs. Hart, you're getting a gift you don't deserve. I suggest you take it and reflect on how you got here. The gavel came down with finality that echoed through the room. The immediate aftermath in the courtroom was surgical in its precision. While Mom sobbed into Dad's shoulder, I signed the debt discharge documents that Daria had prepared as a contingency. Each signature felt like cutting a chain that had bound me for 34 years. Ms. Hart, Judge Morell said, still on the bench. Approach. I walked forward, Daria beside me. Off the record, the judge said quietly. That was either the most generous or the most devastating revenge I've witnessed. Maybe both. It's just business, Your Honor, and closure. She studied me for a moment. The charitable fund that's binding. The check cleared this morning. The fund goes live Monday. Every dollar will help seniors trapped in predatory lending cycles. Using their names. They wanted a legacy. Now they have one. Judge Morell nodded slowly. On the record now, Mr. and Mrs. Hart, you have 72 hours to sign the acceptance of debt discharge. Failure to do so will be seen as contempt. Additionally, the restraining provisions Ms. Hart requested are hereby granted. You are not to contact her directly or indirectly unless she initiates contact. Violation will result in criminal charges. Brennan was already packing his briefcase, probably calculating how to bill this disaster. He muttered something to my parents about his invoice and left without looking back. Vanessa had vanished entirely, her designer heels clicking down the marble hallway before the gavel finished echoing, smart enough to know when to retreat, not smart enough to have avoided this entirely. I turned to face my parents for the last time in that courtroom. Mom had aged 10 years and 10 minutes, her carefully applied makeup streaming down her face. Dad looked hollow, like someone had scooped out whatever pride had been keeping him upright. Lila, Mom started, reaching out. Don't, I said, my voice carrying no anger, no heat, just finality. Your mortgage will be discharged by 5 p.m. today. The fund in your name will help people who actually deserve help. That's more than you offered me. "We're your parents," Dad said weakly. "Biologically, yes. But parents don't invoice their children for childhood. Parents don't threaten extortion. Parents don't plan lawsuits over Sunday dinner." I pulled out my phone, showed them the screen. "I have 47 recordings of your threats, demands, and lies. They're backed up to 3 cloud services, and my attorney has copies. If you ever contact me again, if you ever speak my name to anyone in a defamatory way, if you even think about violating the judge's order, I will release everything. Every family friend, every colleague, everyone at your church will hear exactly who you really are." "You're really going to destroy your own family," Mom whispered. "You destroyed it yourself when you put a price tag on raising me. I'm just handling the estate sale." Daria touched my elbow, time to go. As we walked toward the door, I stopped at the witness stand and picked up the check for the charitable fund. "This," I said, holding it up, "is the only good thing that will ever have your names on it again. $25,000 that will help strangers more than you ever helped me." "That money could have been ours," Dad said, a last gasp of greed. "No, it couldn't, because unlike debt, respect can't be collected by force. It has to be earned, and you're bankrupt." Keith was waiting in the hallway with a tablet showing the discharge documents filed with the county recorder. "It's done. Their mortgage is officially forgiven." "Send them the confirmation," I said. "Certified mail. I want a signature proving they received it." Miles joined us at the elevator. "The fund is established. First grants go out next month." "We already have 16 applications from seniors facing medical debt foreclosure." "Make it 20 grants," I said. "I'll cover the extra personally." As we descended to the lobby, Daria asked, "Any regrets?" "No. Regret requires wishing you'd done something differently. Every choice I made led to this moment them exposed, their mortgage forgiven, and a fund that will actually help people. It's clean, surgical, final." We emerged onto Grant Street, Pittsburgh's afternoon sun cutting between the buildings. Reporters were waiting. Someone, probably Vanessa trying to control the narrative, had tipped them off. "Ms. Hart, is it true you forgave your parents' debt after they sued you?" I stopped, considered my words carefully. "Northline Recovery Partners believes in ethical debt resolution. Today, we discharged a mortgage and established a charitable fund. That's all I have to say." "But they're your parents. Respect isn't hereditary." "Next question." When they realized I wouldn't give them the family drama they wanted, they dispersed. We walked to my car in silence, the weight of the morning settling like dust after an explosion. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number, probably Vanessa on a burner phone. "You've ruined everything. Mom's having a breakdown. Dad's talking about selling the house anyway. Happy." I typed back, "I'm not happy. I'm free. The mortgage is forgiven. They keep their house. What they do with that gift is their choice. Don't contact me again." I blocked the number, then called my assistant. "I need all Hart family numbers blocked from all company lines. If they show up at the office, call security. If they send mail, return to sender." "Understood. Also, local news wants a statement about the charitable fund. Draft something simple. Northline Recovery Partners is committed to helping seniors navigate predatory debt. The Hart Fund is part of that mission. No personal details." I sat in my car for a moment, engine off, watching Pittsburgh's afternoon unfold. Somewhere across the state, my parents were signing papers to accept a gift they didn't deserve. Somewhere. Vanessa was probably calculating how this affected her reputation at the firm. And here I sat, mortgage discharge documents in my briefcase, charitable fund established, legal victory complete. The girl they'd said was just good with numbers had just solved the equation of 34 years of emotional debt with mathematical precision. They wanted payment for raising me. I'd given them something better, freedom from a debt that would have crushed them, and a legacy that would help others. The check might have their names on it, but the power was all mine. And that power said, "You're forgiven, you're forgotten, you're free to go," just like I was finally free from them. The limestone steps of the Allegheny County Courthouse felt different under my feet as I descended them one final time. The September sun hung at 2 o'clock, casting sharp shadows across Grant Street. The city moved around me, buses exhaling at stops, office workers heading to late lunches, life continuing as if nothing had changed. Everything had changed. A reporter from KDKA lingered by the courthouse entrance, her cameraman already packing up equipment. She caught my eye, raised her microphone hopefully. "Ms. Hart, one question: your parents' mortgage was worth $137,000. Why forgive it after what they did?" I stopped, considered walking past, then turned to face her. The camera wasn't rolling, just 2 people on courthouse steps. "Respect can't be invoiced," I said. "It has to be given freely." "But they tried to sue you for raising you. And now their names will help dozens of seniors escape predatory debt through the Hart Fund. That's their legacy, not the lawsuit, not the threats. The help they'll never know they gave." She nodded slowly, understanding dawning. "You turned their greed into charity." "I turned their names into something useful. There's a difference." My phone vibrated confirmation from the county recorder's office. The discharge was official, filed, irreversible. Paul and Marjorie Hart no longer owed $137,000. They'd signed the acceptance papers an hour ago, according to Keith's text. No thank you, no acknowledgement, just signatures on a line. Perfect. I walked to my car, a 6-year-old Honda that Mom had called embarrassing at last Christmas dinner. It started on the first try, reliable as always. The parking garage elevator carried me down to street level, where Pittsburgh's afternoon traffic waited. At a red light on 5th Avenue, I saw them through a coffee shop window, a young woman and her parents, laughing over lattes, the daughter showing them something on her phone while her mother touched her shoulder affectionately. Normal families. The kind I'd invented stories about as a child, pretending my parents were different when teachers asked about home. The light turned green. My phone rang through the car speakers. "Daria." Local news picked up the story. "They're calling you the CEO who forgave her parents' debt after they sued her." It's trending. Let it trend. Maybe it'll help someone else trapped in family financial abuse realize they have options. Speaking of which, applications for the Hart Fund are pouring in. We're going to need to expand the screening team. Hire whoever you need. This fund is going to run perfectly. I pulled into Northline's parking lot, my reserved spot waiting. The building wasn't fancy, a converted warehouse in the Strip District, but it was mine. Built with my work, my decisions, my ethics. Inside, my team had decorated my office with a single balloon that read "Justice" in gold letters. Someone, probably Miles, had left a bottle of champagne on my desk with a note, "For surviving your family." I didn't open it. Survival wasn't worth celebrating. Freedom was. The afternoon dissolved into normalcy: portfolio reviews, acquisition proposals, strategy meetings. By 5 p.m., the courthouse drama felt like something I'd watched happen to someone else. The only evidence was the framed discharge document Daria had couriered over, marked, "For your wall of wins." I hung it behind my desk, next to the incorporation papers for Northline and the first thank you letter I'd received from a customer whose medical debt we'd forgiven. At 6:15 p.m., as I prepared to leave, one final text arrived. Not from family, they were blocked. From my cousin Sarah, the one who'd always been kind. "Heard what happened. Aunt Marge is telling everyone you're heartless." But I saw the fund announcement. That was brilliant and generous. "Take care of yourself." I didn't respond. Some bridges, once burned, light the way forward better than they ever connected backward. Outside, Pittsburgh's evening stretched golden and promising. Somewhere in Erie, my parents sat in a house they owned free and clear, gift of a daughter they'd tried to destroy. Somewhere, Vanessa calculated damage to her reputation. Somewhere, seniors facing foreclosure would soon receive letters saying the Hart Fund had selected them for assistance. I drove home to my 1-bedroom apartment in Lawrenceville, the one with rattling pipes that Vanessa had mocked, climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor, unlocked my door, stepped into my space, mine, earned with my work, my choices, my freedom. On the kitchen counter sat the printed email from 3 months ago, the one that started everything Operation Reality Check. I fed it to the shredder, watching their plan disappear into strips. Then I opened my laptop and pulled up the Heart Fund dashboard. 16 applications already approved for next month's disbursement. 16 families who wouldn't lose their homes to medical debt. 16 legacies better than anything my parents had built. The sun set over Pittsburgh, painting the sky the color of closure. No dramatic music, no bitter tears, no rage. Just a woman at her kitchen table, building something useful from the ashes of something that had never really existed anyway. They demanded I pay them for my childhood, threatened to destroy me if I didn't comply. Instead, I'd paid off their mortgage and turned their names into a force for good they'd never have chosen themselves. The ultimate receipt for a childhood they'd itemized paid in full, with interest they'd never see coming. My phone sat silent. No family calls, no threats, no demands. Just the soft hum of a life finally, completely, irrevocably my own. The girl who was just good with numbers had balanced the books, and the ledger, at last, was closed. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Have you ever had to stand up to family members who felt entitled to your success? I'd really like to hear your experiences. Remember, sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying those who hurt you, it's transforming their actions into something that helps others. Until next time, know your worth, and never let anyone invoice you for love.